Good morning, everybody. I'm Nicola Barrett, Chief Corporate Learning Officer at Emory Executive Education at Goizueta Business School. And thank you for joining us for our Business Over Breakfast webinar series. And also, happy Chinese New Year. I hope that the year of the water tiger lives up to its promise of being action-oriented, brave, strong, and clearing away evil. So I'm looking forward to that. Marketing is a rapidly changing field as customers' expectations are quickly evolving, privacy concerns are becoming paramount, and organizations are really needing to narrow down their focus to get better results. Many organizations have found themselves asking how to keep up with changes in consumer behavior, leverage the overwhelming amount of data at their fingertips, and pursue marketing strategies that best target their customers and prospects. Our speaker this morning, Jamie Turner, is an expert on this marketing revolution, and we're excited to have him with us today to explore this morning's topic of one-to-one, the future of marketing. Jamie's been on Business Breakfast before, and for those that, for those that don't know him, he is an internationally recognized speaker and facilitator, professor. He specializes in leadership, management, persuasion, and has a client list that includes Coca-Cola Company, AT&T, IBM, Verizon, and Holiday Inn. He's the co-author of several books, including Audience of One, How to Make Money with Social Media, Go Mobile, and Digital Marketing Growth Hacks. He's the founder of the 60-Second Marketer and has a YouTube series called In 60, which was designated as one of the top 8 business of YouTube channels in the nation. He's a regular guest on CNN, has been interviewed and quoted by a number of the business press. So we're very fortunate to have Jamie back with us today to share his insights and expertise. Jamie is very interactive, as you will soon find out. So please put any questions you have, any comments you have in the chat. And we will get to those to as many of those as possible throughout the hour today. At the end of today's session, there will be a short survey, so please do give us your feedback because that helps us understand where your interests lie. One more thing before I hand over to Jamie. Emory Executive Education is looking for a great exec ed program manager to join our team. So if you know of anyone who loves serving clients, is organized, detail-oriented, lives in Atlanta and wants to join a great dynamic little team, please reach out to us. Please reach out to me. I can put my email in the chat for you. So enjoy the next hour with Jamie, and as I will, and look forward to seeing you all again on the first Thursday of March. My goodness. Thanks, Jamie.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nicola. I sure do appreciate being invited here. Let's dive right in. Open up your chat feature if you don't mind. And I'd like you to type in there your name and where you are calling in from or where you are watching this from. We have people from all over the nation, maybe even people overseas. And I always love to kind of kick things off. There we have Lisa in Decatur, Georgia, right around the corner. Ashley, of course, in Atlanta. Great. Let's see. Springfield, Virginia. That's terrific. Detroit. Excellent. Fayetteville, Atlanta, U.S. Virgin Islands. Oh, Colleen, that must be wonderful. We're going to have to talk about that and how wonderful that must be. Brookhaven, let's see, a lot of people from all over the place. Dallas, Mike from Dallas, Huntsville, Alabama, St. Pete, awesome. Part of the reason why I love to kick things off by getting you to chat in there and tell us where you're calling in from is because this is an interactive presentation and it's designed for you to ask questions as I go through showing the slides. So feel free to anytime open up that chat feature and type in a question. I'll be monitoring it and kind of glancing down there. And we also have Beth from Waleska. Hey, Beth, I'm in Waleska too. Look at where I am. I am at Lake Arrowhead. You can see on my screen, that's out my back door right now. It is a rainy day up here in Waleska, Georgia, but I know it's rainy in a lot of parts or snowy in other parts of the country. So Beth, good to see you. You're right around the corner from where I am. In fact, you may live in Lake Arrowhead. Hope everybody's doing great. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I'm going to move at a pretty rapid pace. So if there's anything that I talk about that you want more information on, Ashley will be sending out the slides afterwards. That's fine. It gives you information about what we'll talk about today, as well as anything else that you might need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to dive right in. You should be seeing on the screen right now, it should say one-to-one marketing. If it doesn't say that, just type it in the feature, in the chat feature, and say, I'm not seeing the screen, but it should say one-to-one marketing. And right now it should also say brands around the globe have a problem. What is the problem? Let's talk about that. The problem is that marketing is broken. What do I mean by that? It's broken because consumers actually hate advertising. And let's take a look at some data that supports that. Consumers around the globe say ads are intrusive, irrelevant, and inauthentic. 34% say that ads are inappropriate or irrelevant. So 34%, 64% say they hate ads because they're annoying or intrusive. And consumers in Brazil, Argentina, and the US rank advertising the least trustworthy source of news and information. So those of us who are marketers, we got a problem on our hands, which is people don't trust what we tell them. So we have a problem, but wait, it gets actually even worse. 84% of those surveyed say intrusive ads create a poor opinion of the brands being advertised. Now, it's bad enough that they don't like ads, but when you have an ad that intrudes upon what you're doing or jars you with information you're not ready for at that moment, then that's an intrusive ad, and it's not very positive for the experience of the consumer. 56% say ads they see insult their intelligence, and favorability towards ads has gone from 50% in the early 1990s to 25% in 2018. So we really do have a problem. Our own personal experience on all of this supports the research that I just shared with you. When women see an ad for men in their news feed, it's viewed as intrusive, irrelevant, and inauthentic. And when men see an ad for women in their news feed, it's also viewed as intrusive, irrelevant, and inauthentic. Now you can imagine, I'm going with some ads here that aren't that intrusive because it's perfume. You know, hey, if I get a perfume ad, it's not the end of the world. But there are ads that are a little more intrusive than that, whether it's for Viagra or anything else, you know that it can be sort of jarring for you. So here's a famous example of a brand that did an ad that was irrelevant, intrusive, and inauthentic. Let's take a look at it. It's the Pepsi Live for Now campaign. Came out a few years ago, and y'all will be familiar with this ad because it had such huge backlash. The reason is because Pepsi was seen as just running an ad that was designed to sell more Pepsi. And so it was taking a serious subject, which was the protests going on in the streets, and saying, oh, well, let's leverage that for our own benefit by selling some ads. So selling some Pepsi. So people saw the ad as inauthentic. It didn't represent what the Pepsi brand was all about. And so as a result, there was horrible, horrible backlash for Pepsi. Here's some of the tweets that came out. Charles M. Blow said, I'm boycotting all Pepsi products until they apologize for this blasphemy. Here's a list of their brands. Now, here's what they said. Here's what the ad was about, in case you missed it, and you probably saw the ad, but it was Kendall Jenner walking down a street. There's protests going on. She opens up a Pepsi, hands it to people. All of a sudden, everybody magically is happy about everything, and everybody's getting along. And again, it was seen as leveraging a serious subject, which were protests, in order to for commercial reasons. Very, very bad move on Pepsi's part. DeRay McKesson said, if I had carried Pepsi when I protested, he was saying, I guess I never would have gotten arrested. Who knew? So it was a really bad situation. So this is a great example of how marketing is broken, and consumers say it's intrusive, irrelevant, and inauthentic. But there is a solution. We've got a big problem on our hands, but there is a solution. It's called one-to-one marketing, and brands are using it to become less intrusive, more relevant, and more authentic as they move forward. One-to-one marketing gives you the opportunity to grow your revenues by narrowing your focus. Now I'm going to actually mention something here for a second. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I just want to talk about why this is important and how this relates to you. For all of us here on this session right now, some of you may be not in marketing. Some of you may be in marketing, but you're in sort of a smaller company that doesn't necessarily have the sophisticated tools we're going to talk about. Or some of you may be at large corporations. You may say, no, we've got every tool you could imagine. What I'm about to talk about covers the spectrum. So it starts out with some fundamental things that probably everybody is already doing, and it moves up the chain of command to slightly more sophisticated things as we get through it. So it should be relevant for everybody. So let's take a look and keep on going here, and we will dive back into the slides right now. Let me just jump over here. I'm going to go boom, boom, boom. So one-to-one marketing gives you the opportunity to grow your revenues by narrowing your focus. So here's one-to-one in 5 simple steps. The first we're going to talk about is thinking backwards. The second is being radically authentic. The third is to personalize your campaigns. The fourth is to hyper-target your campaigns. And the fifth is to leverage data. And so those are the 5 steps to one-to-one marketing. We're going to take a look at each one of these, but I do want to mention, Gary mentioned something, and this is a great comment from Gary. We're all in marketing as representatives of the product we are working in. That's a great, Gary, you're going to get some applause for that comment. That's a great applause. I love that. I love that comment. By the way, I got sound effects for us today. So if I do tell a joke, and a good joke, do a little bit of laughter. Now, if you all hear me do a dad joke and you're like, oh my God, I'm rolling my eyes, I also have that sound effect too. So we've got all sorts of things to make this fun and interesting for everybody. But let's keep going here and talk about one-to-one in 5 steps. And Gary, thank you for your comment there. I totally agree 100%. So what is thinking backwards? People are like, well, you know, Jamie's talking about thinking backwards. What does that actually mean? And we're going to talk about that. Right now, I want you to type in the chat feature what it is you're buying when you buy a cup of Starbucks. What is it you're purchasing? And just think it through. There's no right or wrong answers. But just type in the chat feature what you think people are buying, and we'll go through some of these. I'm going to give you a second to do it. A little Jeopardy music while people are typing.
Jamie, while people are typing, a question from Michael Young in the Q&A. I understand that consumers want less intrusive, more authentic marketing, but they also want their brands and companies to take a position and be vocal about key issues in society. Are these potentially conflicting?
Oh, I love that question. That's a great question. We're actually going to address that. And I'll give you a heads up early on. Studies show that the younger you are as a consumer, the more interested you are in your brand tying in to social issues and being vocal about that. But you have to be careful. If you are a brand that is questioning whether you should jump into social issues or not, I would suggest erring on the side of caution and dipping your toe into it slowly, because it can backfire, as we saw for Pepsi. However, we're going to see a case study in a minute for Nike where it didn't backfire, and there are reasons behind it, and we'll learn what those reasons are. So great question there. Let's take a look at some of the things. Linda says she's buying at Starbucks coffee. Gary gets it. Another big one, Gary. He's buying into the experience. Randy, the experience, good. Mary Sue, the cafe experience, alertness, great status, good taste, caffeine. Everybody's right on this. We're buying all of those things, but the key point we're trying to make here is you're buying more than a cup of coffee when you walk into Starbucks. You're buying the experience and everything that surrounds it, which is why you're paying $5 for a cup of coffee. Well, Porsche has the same exact thing going on. You're not buying a German engineered car when you buy a Porsche. You're buying sex appeal, you're buying the feeling of being youthful, you're doing all of that. And you're buying all of this for emotional reasons. People buy products for emotional reasons. They rationalize the purchase logically. So if you buy a $180,000 Porsche, if I did that, and I do not have one, but if I came home with a $180,000 Porsche, my lovely wife would say to me, what the hell are you doing buying a $180,000 car? Now, I would have bought it for the emotional reasons. Well, I want to feel younger, all of that stuff. But if I got home and she asked me that, I would say, well, it's German engineering. It's got safety features. features, I would have all these logical reasons why I bought the Porsche. Same holds true for a Rolex watch. Why do we buy a Rolex? It's not because it tells better time, because it doesn't. We buy a Rolex for the status surrounding Rolex. So thinking backwards, action step. What I mean by thinking backwards is for everybody on this call today, on this Zoom meeting today, think through what is it that people are actually buying when they buy your product or service. If you work at a bank, people aren't buying a place to stash their money because every bank stashes your money safely. That's called a category value. Of course, a bank is going to hold your money for you, and it's going to be safe. Category value. What you have to do is think through, well, what are they actually buying at a bank? Well, a lot of times it's customer service, friendly customer service, accessibility, all those things. But you can all get all the way over to, I'm selling green widgets. What are people actually buying when they're buying a green widget? You have to think that through on a deep level. And the Starbucks, Porsche, and Rolex case studies just gave you a sense of that. So step number one for everybody is, what is your customer actually buying? There's an old line in marketing. When somebody buys a drill and a 3/4 inch drill bit, they aren't buying a drill, they're buying 3/4 inch holes is what they're looking for. So keep that in mind as you're going through things. The second thing on our steps towards going in with one-to-one marketing is being radically authentic. And this gets back to that question that came up earlier. You have to be cautious on this because you can go overboard. But let's take a look at things. We saw what happened when Pepsi did their campaign, but when Nike took a risk, an authentic risk, their stock price reached an all-time high. So everybody here is familiar with the Colin Kaepernick campaign, which went well for Nike within most customer segments, specifically Nike's primary demographic. But what they ended up doing was saying, hey, why did Nike work and Pepsi didn't? And go ahead and put in the chat feature down there, why do you think the Nike campaign worked and the Pepsi campaign didn't? Anybody want to give a chat on that? I am going to come up with the answer in a second, but if anybody wants to just give their 2 cents in there. No shoes in the ad. That's interesting. Align with their values. There you go, Alex. That's right. Timing, demographic targeting. Good. They had a level of authority on the subject. Sports. Good. Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually, that level of authority is a great way to say that. The current social climate, all of the things that are going on. And Michael says it right, which is what the next slide says, which is that kind of totally authentic. It was true to their brand. Nike was about struggling and pushing through adversity in order to accomplish your goal. Whether you're buying basketball shoes, whether you're buying marathon shoes, a marathoner pushes through 3, 4, 5, 6 months of training in order to get to the other side. Nike embraced that. That's what they've been about since the beginning of the company. And that was why that campaign actually worked, because Colin Kaepernick's struggle matched their positioning. So overall, respondents approved of the campaign. And by the way, I can't quite read some of my statistics here because these things are blocking it, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to close that out and be better there. 49% to 37%, 18 to 34-year-olds supported the campaign, 67% to 21%, and respondents 65 and older disapproved, 46% to 39%. That last data point is an important one because it's basically saying that respondents, when the older the respondents got, the more they disapproved of the campaign. You can just piece that together. More traditional people as they get older, a little more conservative as they get older, things like that. And that's why overall for their demographic, it actually was a very successful campaign. Let's keep going. Authenticity action step for everybody on this call right now. What is at the heart of your brand? And what is your authentic purpose? I do consulting with brands around the globe. I just got through doing one for a company out of Spain, and we sat down and said, how do we talk about what our products purpose is? A purpose is somewhat different than a mission statement or a vision statement. And sometimes we can get a little over the top with every statement. We've got elevator statement, mission statement, purpose statement, all that sort of stuff. But if you think about what your brand actually represents and what it's bringing to people at its essence, you can use that as a foundation to build upon as you develop your own authentic, radical authenticity. So think about that for your own brands. Be thinking about it as we go through this presentation. What's our purpose? What are we really about? What are we bringing to the table? And I'm going to show you some examples of that. Crayola's purpose is not, let's sell more crayons. It's also not, hey, we just want to provide kids fun. It's, we want to unleash the originality in every child. It goes very, very deep to a very emotional and human and authentic purpose. Let's keep going. The Dove purpose is to help women everywhere develop a positive relationship with the way they look. So Dove their purpose isn't sell more soap. It's, we want women everywhere to develop a positive relationship with the way they look. And it gives you a sense of what purpose is about. Let's do a couple of comments here. Kamarisha Gorman says Nike's efforts were more helpful and beneficial to the athlete. Pepsi was riding a wave. Nike was taking a stand. Wow. I love that. Gets another round of applause. Kamarisha, I love that comment. Pepsi was riding a wave. Nike was taking a stand. That is worth quoting. I'm gonna get a screenshot of that, and I'm gonna steal your idea there. I love that. That's terrific. Steven says, do you have data insights on ESG reporting and brand perception? Stephen, can you expand on that? Tell me ESG, what you mean by that. There are a lot of acronyms out there and I'm familiar with most of them, but tell me what you mean by that. Expand on that. I'm going to keep on moving on this as you're writing that in there, and we'll come back to that question. Personalization. This is where we really get into what one-to-one marketing is all about. Everything we've talked about so far is kind of strategic. Now we're going to start getting down to the tactical. How do you apply one-to-one marketing? And I see we have some Q&As in the question and answer feature. Ashley's going to interrupt me if she wants, if there's any in there, but do open up the chat feature. I am monitoring those as we go through things real quickly so I can kind of do stuff. So JC responded back to Stephen's comment, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. Do you have any data insights on ESG reporting and brand perceptions? I don't have it off the top of my head. We've got a lot of data in these slides, so I'm sorry I don't have that. But the bottom line is we do know that overall brands really have the need to stand up for what they stand for, but you have to be careful about how you move through that. Let's dive into the slide here. It says personalization. We're going to talk about how you can personalize your brand and get more personalization going on in your campaigns. 80% of the people say they're more likely to purchase from brands that personalize their experiences. 91% say they're more likely to buy brands that recognize them and give them relevant offers. 63% say they'll stop purchasing products from companies that do not personalize their marketing content well. So we're seeing data here that shows, hey, guess what? We need to personalize our brands. How can we personalize our marketing? Well, astronomy shows the answer. I'm going to show my office here right behind me. You can see a quick screenshot here. See that back there, right there? That's a little telescope. You may be saying, how the hell is Jamie going in and bringing astronomy into this? Well, I love looking at stars, and I'm fascinated by what you can do and what you can learn about the universe by looking at a single dot of light. So let's take a look at where we are on all this, and I'm going to show how this is all matches up to what we're talking about here. So let's dive in. How can we personalize marketing? Astronomy provides the answer. Let's take a look at this. Here's what we can know about the universe from a single dot of light. It's fascinating. We can know what the star's chemical composition is, how old it is, when it'll die, whether there are black holes nearby, all of this data just from simple stuff looking at a single dot of light. You can tell a ton about the star and the universe around it. We can also do the same thing when we look at individuals. We know 1,450 pieces of information about you that's going on. And sorry, Craig, I see your comment there. I'll slow down a little bit. I was going through things pretty rapidly there. Ashley will have the slides. And yes, we do have a recording on this, so we'll be able to do it. That's a slight side comment there, but I'm going to come back real quickly to the task at hand right there. You can see on the slide here, we know 1,450 pieces of information about you. And if you're nervous about privacy, we're going to get to that in a second, and I'll show you what brands are doing to prevent invading your privacy, even though I come out with that statement, 1,450 pieces of information. We know where you shop for groceries, what you watch on TV, whether you like Coke or Pepsi, where you went on vacation, what your credit score is, where you bank, what kind of car you drive. All of this information is out there. Now, for those of you, again, I'm going to get back to why you don't have to worry about this too much, although I know if you're a privacy advocate, there's no amount of explanation I'm going to give that's going to satisfy you. But in the mid 1960s, when direct mail started happening and information started being shared, we lost a lot of our privacy, because in the mid 1960s, we started knowing where you bank, where you went on vacation. All of this information has been around for 50 years. Now, I'm going to walk you through why brands are hypersensitive to this subject right now and what they're doing to protect your privacy so that we don't know actually information, or a brand that's doing this responsibly doesn't care about you individually. What they care about is people in segments that have similar behaviors. Now, that's an important concept. They don't care about you individually. What they care about is data sets that show that we have 100,000 customers or prospects with behaviors that would match what we're looking for to buy our product. Now, that's an important concept to understand, because brands are bending over backwards to make sure that they do protect your privacy. So let's keep, where do we get this data? What happens? Well, what happens is when we get data, we can start connecting the dots to all of this information that's out there so that we can start putting together statistical data sets that are out there, and that we can start going in and saying, hey, guess what? We now can come up with customer segments and then anonymize that data so that you are not Bob Smith, but you are customer prospect 17523-A7642 in a data set that we basically put up walls to protect from us from intruding on your privacy. So let's take a look at personalization and how you can just do it in a simple way. Here's an example from a website that said from Paper Style, and they went in and they said on the left-hand side of the computer screen there, you can see what are you planning? Are you planning your wedding? On the left-hand side, you click a button there. Or are you planning a friend or relative's wedding? On the right-hand side. Once you click one of those buttons, you go down 2 different avenues depending on what you're doing. And those avenues take you down different web pages. So your experience is somewhat different. This is a very simple form of personalization, but you can imagine if you get to this website and you're planning a wedding for a friend and you click on the right-hand side, that's going to be a very different experience from if you click on the left-hand side. And what ends up happening is you have an experience that's much more personalized and geared toward you. And it works out very, very well for people having an experience. And they saw some information that showed, hey, what ended up happening on this compared to previous results. Paper Style's click-through rate increased by, and again, I can't read my slides there. Let me make one minor adjustment here to this so that I can start reading my slides. And then we'll go back here, boom, and then I can see a little bit more of what's going on here. Paper Style's open rate increased 244%, and their click-through rate increased by 161%. Let's use another example of personalization. If you go to the bills.com website, They have a landing page slider that allows the site to capture segmentation information and pass it along as part of this, as the company's lead capture form. So if you get to their website and you need to borrow $25,000, you do the slider, you hit continue, and it puts you into a bucket that says this is somebody who is on the lower end of what they would do alone. You would go to a different salesperson than if you hit the $100,000 plus bucket, and you'd get into a different bucket there. So personalization, even though I know I've freaked everybody out by saying, hey, we got 1,450 pieces of data about you, in the end, personalization can be a good thing if it's used responsibly. And every major brand out there is trying to make sure they're doing things responsibly. And let's keep talking about personalization. Here's a great example in the education segment. The University of Waterloo tapped into the power of customized videos. Elements of personalization in the video included the student's name. Right there on the video, when the student would get this video, it was personalized and they would see their name. This is a prospective student. Second bullet point, a friendly fellow student offering some help, a placard in the room, personalized t-shirt being sold at a stall, and even their name on a Starbucks cup. Let's take a look at this video real quickly, and you can see what it was like. A student would be receiving this. A prospective student would get this. You can see Shaquille's name is all over all the information. So you can imagine being a senior in high school, a little bit nervous about taking off for college next year, a little bit apprehensive. You fill out a form, you say, hey, I'm interested in the University of Waterloo and I'm thinking about going to school there. They send you a welcome video that includes your name on the stuff to make you feel more comfortable. Great use of personalization and a great job for the University of Waterloo. Here's another example. For those of you, we've all been to websites where we see the chat feature down in the bottom right-hand side. And that chat feature goes in and says, hey, welcome to our website. And it's basically powered by artificial AI. And it has a conversation with you. When you go in and you go to customer service at Airbnb or whatever on their website, that little chat feature will talk to you and have a conversation with you and be able to engage with you. And when you get to a certain stage, it'll flip you over to a real person. Well, Facebook has a similar technology, which is Facebook Messenger bots. If you go to the Nike Facebook page, or let's just use the example here, the Juniper Landscape Design Facebook page, you can engage with their Facebook page, and Facebook has a messenger bot that can have a conversation, a personalized conversation with you. Let's take a look at what happens here. You're typing in, hey, what are you here for? I want to get a quote. And then the messenger bot says, happy to help. Now, again, this is just a computer. How much are you planning on spending? And when do you want to do this? And you type in, hey, I want to do it on September 20th. Okay, cool. Let's talk about a window between which you can do this project for us. So the messenger bot on the Facebook page is actually having a conversation with the consumer, which makes the consumer feel as though they're having a more personalized experience, but also gives Juniper Landscape the ability to set up their program where they can go in and basically have leads generated and dropped into the lap of the salesperson, so they already know all this information about the person before they move on. So that's a great example of personalization in action. Seems to work out pretty well. Let's talk about action steps for you if you're in on this right now. First and foremost, segment and personalize your emails. You're all using marketing automation probably, so you'll want to segment and personalize your emails. Second thing is create promotions specific to each segment. So create promotions. If you are Nike and you have an email database, they're going to get very sophisticated. Hey, these are people who are marathoners versus a segment that are light joggers, and they're going to get different email campaigns. Use your website chatbots to engage visitors. Use Facebook's messenger bots to personalize your Facebook page. And then finally, use video personalization tools for business-to-business campaigns where you can go in and you have the ability to do that. Now, let's talk a little bit about account-based marketing. Account-based marketing is a little bit of a fancy term for leveraging a lot of the tools that are available to you in marketing automation, as well as other tools that can hyper target your campaigns and make them more specific. In an ideal way, if I'm selling copiers and I have a target market, I have one of my client prospects is the Home Depot, I would want to send digital ads as well as emails just to the people at Home Depot who are in charge of buying copiers. I don't want to send it to the average person in their corporate offices. I want to send it to the people who are in charge of purchasing. With account-based marketing, when it's used properly, you can do that kind of thing. So it makes your conversion rate that much better. Here are the few of the top account-based marketing platforms. If you're interested in this, Demand-based, Terminus, HubSpot does a pretty good job, and 6 Sense. All of these are tools that are out there that you can use if you're in the B2B world and want to use that. Now, remember, chatbots for your website is an important aspect. Try to put one in. It's pretty easy. If you have a WordPress site, you can just use a WordPress plugin. If you have a more sophisticated site, you'll use that. But here are a few of the top chat platforms for 2022: MobileMonkey, Chatfuel, Live Chat, which I've used before, and Zendesk. All of that, all of that works out. So let's keep going here. Let's talk about hyper targeting. Hyper targeting is now we're getting to the more sophisticated side of one-to-one marketing. Let's talk about a case study in this, and then we'll walk you through how to do it. Let's say you're the CMO of Mercedes-Benz. That's terrific. You want to target and track prospects as they move through your sales funnel. So you get data out there that shows you, hey, in this neighborhood, we've got 3 people living next door to each other. The person at 123 Smith Street has a high likelihood of buying a Mercedes-Benz. The person at 124 Smith Street has a low likelihood. They aren't making enough money right now. And the person at 125 Smith Street is never going to buy a Mercedes-Benz. They don't believe in cars. So what we're going to do is get this data so that for the person at 123 Smith Street, we can do a short-term action-oriented campaign. At 124 Smith Street, we're going to do a long-term awareness building campaign that ultimately may get our brand in front of them. So 5 years later, they buy the Mercedes-Benz, and we're going to skip the person at 125 Smith Street because we don't need to target them. Now, I was literally in at Coca-Cola a few years ago talking about this technology, and I started the presentation by saying, hey, guess what? I can save you 33% right off the top of your spend because we can use technology to make sure we don't send ads to people who are never going to buy Coca-Cola. And that was a great intro to a meeting. And that's what this Mercedes-Benz case study is showing you. How can we do this? Well, there's a lot of data that exists out there. As we mentioned, this data has been around since the mid-1960s, but we have user data, purchase data. Anytime you make a purchase, that's included in a database, consumer data, banking data, mobile data, travel data, healthcare data, payments data, and even customer data. So there's a lot of information that we can get out there in order to use it to hyper target people using the technologies we've talked about. Now let's get into the details of this 5th component, which is specific to one-to-one marketing. Hyper targeting is an aspect of one-to-one, but when we really drill down, I'm going to show you how to use one-to-one, and it takes a little bit of sophistication, but I know you're up to it. Here is where marketing has gone from the 1950s to today. It started out with broadcast in the 1950s. Everybody was like, wow, we can run a TV commercial and reach all of America. Isn't that wonderful? Today, we're much more targeted. We're into narrow casting. In the 50s, we did demographic targeting. Hey, we're going to use TV, print, and radio to target people based on their demographics. In the 60s, which we've talked about already, we got into database targeting. Hey, we know that we have a data set of people who like to travel to Europe, and we have a separate data set of people who like to travel to Hawaii. Let's go ahead and do a direct mail campaign. The one to Europe is going to talk about a different set of topics than the people who like to travel to Hawaii. It sort of made personalization come online. Then we got into behavioral targeting, where we were able to kind of find out what your behaviors were. Hey, this person spends an awful lot of time on the NFL website. Because we know that about them, we know that they're interested in football. They might also be a candidate for football gear, or at least a candidate to buy Super Bowl tickets. So we can use that information. We're now in the world of one-to-one targeting, where we get into addressable TV, facial recognition, mobile device targeting, all sorts of things that we can use in order to send ads to people that are more relevant, and then follow them through the sales funnel until they make a purchase. Now, how does all this happen? We are a brand. We talked earlier about the Mercedes-Benz brand. We then go in and we work with an identity resolution partner to say, we have data, our own first party data of people who have come to Mercedes-Benz dealerships in the past. We have that data because they filled out a form or they've bought a Mercedes-Benz from us. That's called first party data. When you go in and buy a Mercedes-Benz, you're basically signing a document that says, hey, yeah, you can use my data. That's fine. I know I'm in your database. And that's just part of life in the world we live in. But because of Cambridge Analytica, what happened with Facebook and the use of data, brands are hypersensitive to getting burned by using the data inappropriately. So what they've done is they've built a wall by saying, we're going to go to identity resolution partners. And there are companies out there that take data and create non-personally identifiable data sets that give brands the ability to target people based on their behaviors and their actions, but also protecting their personal identity. And that's an important topic. I know I said something kind of outrageous before. We got 1,450 pieces of data about you. That's intentional. I'm trying to keep your attention through an hour-long presentation. But the reality is that any brand doing it properly, and that means virtually any of the large brands in the Fortune 1000 and beyond, they're going to go to an identity resolution partner, and they're going to say, we're going to give you our data set. We want you to add and enhance that data so that we can find other people like this. And then we also want to use a data quality and privacy partner to make sure that we're protecting the consumer's privacy. The companies that are out there that do this are included on the screen right now. Some of them you would have heard of: Nielsen, Oracle. Everybody's familiar with those. There are other companies: Lotame, Simplify, OnAudience.com, OneView, and a couple of other companies. But these are the companies that have this data. You then create data sets and go to your ad agency and say, hey, I want to take this data and I want to target my consumers. They say, okay, cool. We're going to go to an ad buying platform. You see the ad buying platforms on there right now. You go in and use programmatic ad buying and basically use this as a way to go in and say, we're going to just target these people who have a higher propensity to buy our product. Why? Because we know that research shows that the more personalized ads are and the more relevant they are, the more the audience appreciates it. So we're going to take data, protect their privacy, but then target them by sending ads to these non-personally identifiable data sets that are made up of hundreds of thousands or millions of consumers who would have a propensity to buy it. So the ad goes to the consumer, then the consumer goes to the retailer and purchases the product. Here's what's cool. When we see how the consumer behaves with your ad, if they click through on it, that goes back to the data and says, hey, this is a consumer who's highly engaged. If you don't click through through on the ad, that goes back too. And it says, this consumer's not engaged with our ad. They're probably not a good candidate for us. But here's what's even cooler. If you buy the product at the retailer, not in every case, but in most cases, if you buy the product at the retailer, that data goes back and it says, oh, okay, we know that Jamie is interested in marathon shoes because we sent him an ad. We had data about him. We made it non-personally identifiable, and he was in that data set. And then we tracked that this consumer received this ad, purchased marathon shoes at the Nike store, and that comes back and is basically a way to do it. Betsy says, how do you apply this to B2B solution selling? This is applicable, Betsy. A short answer to that is look into account-based marketing and get into some of the more sophisticated account-based marketing platforms. Have a conversation with their salesperson, with their salespeople, and then you'll be able to go in and ask these kind of questions, say, how does this apply to me? But it does. In fact, all of this actually works better for B2B than it does for B2C. Why? Because in the B2B world, you're selling products that are thousands of dollars. So you have the ability to hyper target even better. The more you hyper target, the more expensive it gets. If you have a $1,000 product and the profit margin on that is $200, that's much better than if you're trying to sell a pair of Nike shoes for $150 and your profit margin is $30. So it gives you a lot of ability to do that. I'm also available afterwards if you just want to shoot me an email, and I'll put my email at the end of the slide, and we can have a conversation about that. Happy to answer that. But we see here now in this B2C example, hey, Mercedes-Benz can go into and send an ad to your smartphone, to your iPad, to your desktop, to your laptop, your TV, and then get you to do it. Let's talk about one-to-one in action as I round the bend here. Midas worked with Nielsen to look at credit card transactions from 125 million non-personally identifiable prospects. They hyper-targeted ads specifically to people who had visited a Midas competitor in the past year. So they got data. Hey, who fixed their car in the last year that didn't go to Midas? They got that data set. Then they sent ads to that data set. The result was that Midas increased its market share 8% in the households that saw the campaign, and every dollar spent on the ad campaign generated $10 in revenue for Midas. So of course, what about privacy? We've already talked about that. The co-author of my new book on this that was just published by McGraw-Hill is Chuck Moxley, great guy, one of the smartest guys I know. He says, the secret to a successful marketing campaign isn't about personalization. It's about knowing where the line is between your customer welcoming you into their lives and your customer pushing you out of their lives. We've seen data that says when the ads are more personalized, as long as you don't cross certain lines, but when they're relevant and personalized, you can actually have a customer lean into engaging with you as opposed to being put off by it. So where can you learn more about one-to-one marketing? Great question. The book I've got out is called An Audience of One. Here's the good news. You can get a free chapter from An Audience of One. If you're interested in this, go to audienceofone.website and you'll be able to click through on that and download a free chapter, which will give you a sense of, yeah, this is actually interesting and relevant information. So visit audienceofone.website and you'll be able to grab a free chapter from that. Here's good news. Everyone at this event will be entered into a drawing for a free copy of the book. So Ashley's going to do a drawing at the end of this, and Nicola is too. And we'll pull that name out of a hat and basically follow up with you and say, hey, you won the drawing. Would you like a free copy of Jamie's book? I'll sign it. I'll put it in the mail to you, and you'll get an autographed copy of that. My name is Jamie Turner. Let's do some big applause for Jamie. I'm just kidding. Actually, let's just do a little bit of laughter there. My name is Jamie Turner. I'm an author, a professor, and a consultant. You can reach me at jamie@jamieturner.live. I'm going to pause here and stop sharing for a second and go ahead and just say thank you guys to everybody who's been on this. I loved the questions that came through. Gary, thank you for saying it was an excellent presentation. I'm going to hang out for a little bit and just see if there are any other questions. And you can unmute yourself and just ask a question about one-to-one. one. I know we had some questions about, hey, how does this apply to B2B? That's a very common question, of course, because I'm a B2B person as well. And I sit around in speeches and go, well, wait, you're talking about B2C examples here. How does this apply to B2B? This technology actually works better for B2B than it does for B2C. How often have you been in a presentation when they have said that to you? Probably zero, but here's the first one. This is actually technology that works out better. We've got a few comments in here. Robert, good presentation. I'm excited. Excellent. That's terrific. Craig says, what's the name of my podcast? Actually, it's my YouTube channel. And if you just want to find out about me, go to Google and type in Jamie Turner, and it'll be all on the first page. But if you want to go to YouTube and do the same thing, just type in Jamie Turner and it'll get over to my YouTube channel for you. It's called In60, but actually you just go in there. And I talk mostly about leadership development, how to do a better job leading yourself and leading others, because my passion is helping other people discover a better version of themselves. Marketing is part of that passion. Terrific. I am going to actually turn it back over to Nicola. And when Nicola is sort of wrapping things up, I'll type in there my email address if you want to send me an email, and then also type in the Audience of One website so you can just click that. But Nicola, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Jamie. I'm actually going to turn it over to Ashley.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jamie. And like Jamie said, please take advantage of his contact information. I know that he would be happy to talk with anyone more about some of their questions. There were lots of questions around personalization and what, where that line is between intrusive and creepy and actually helpful. All those are great questions, and I'm sure Jamie would be happy to talk more about that. Just a little bit more about about Exec Ed. We have several things coming up in the next month. We have our next business over breakfast. I'm having trouble making it a large size here. We have our next business over breakfast on February 17th, the future of finance using analytics to see the big picture. That'll be a really interesting one. So we hope you will be able to join us for that. And then we have several other topics coming up this spring that you can see here on this slide. We'll be covering the gamut from strategy visualization to supply chain to pricing to metrics. And then, as always, we have short courses that we are offering here. We have an entire short course on strategy visualization coming up on February 16th and 17th, followed by data visualization, managerial leadership, and executive communication and leadership presence. And that's just a small list of what we've got coming our way. So, take a look at our website, reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to talk more about any of those things. And as always, thank you for joining us. We will be sharing a quick poll here at the end. We always appreciate your feedback. We are ending just a few minutes early today as Jamie is running off to go teach a class actually at Emory. So, but like I said, please reach out to him if you have any questions. We always love having him, and he always loves working with all of you. So thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Take care.